If you're making any of the following mistakes with your braking, you'll be losing time in your sim racing and not be fulfilling your potential on track. I'm Scott Mansell from Driver61, where we train thousands of real world and sim racers to lap faster and make fewer mistakes. I've been lucky enough to drive over 25 F1 cars, and I absolutely love helping drivers get faster. So the first mistake that we see is drivers trying to brake too late. Now, it makes a lot of sense that if you brake later, you're going to go faster, but this is not entirely true. Of course, we want to brake as late as we possibly can going into a corner, but not at the expense of the amount of grip we've got available when we begin to turn the car into the corner. So you want to make sure that you're braking as late as you possibly can, but also while the car is under complete control and stable. So you need to think about what the car is like, not only in the straight line leading up to the corner, but also when you begin to turn the car in toward the apex. If the car is unstable at this point, if it doesn't feel fluid, like it's flowing into the apex, it's likely that you'll have to try and brake a little bit earlier so that you can maintain that control when you turn the car into the corner. The way that you should approach your braking point is actually by first focusing on the middle part of the corner, from when you turn the car in toward the apex to when you hit that exit curb on the way out. First of all, you want to get the car feeling fluid through the middle part of the corner, so probably braking a little bit earlier than you might expect. Therefore, you can keep the car nice and stable on corner entry, keep everything under control, keep the car just within the limit. Once you've got this flow working properly, you can then edge your braking point a bit deeper each and every lap until you reach the absolute limit. Next up, we have relying on the car's ABS system too heavily, and this is something similar to trying too hard or trying to brake too late. In many racing sims and platforms, relying on the ABS too heavily in the braking zone is going to be costing you time, and it isn't the fastest way to drive on track. To understand why this would cost you time, you first need to understand the anti-lock braking system. Now, this is an electronic system on the car that helps the tyres not lock up, not stop rotating if you push the brake pedal too hard. Now, this system will actually recognize when a tyre is beginning to stop rotating and release the brake slightly when this happens. This system was originally developed for road cars and road drivers, with the idea being that if a driver stamps on the brakes as heavy as they can, they still have the ability to turn the car and avoid a potential accident. So as the tyres begin to lock, the system will release the brakes slightly, and this happens many times a second, allowing the tyre to slow its rotation and then release, slow rotation and release. Now, the problem with ABS is that you're going over and under the limit many times per second. What is much faster for a racing driver is to be much more refined with how you approach the limit. And when you do this, you have more grip available for you for braking and turning the car. The main problem with ABS in the sim is that if you trigger it by braking too hard in the braking zone and then try to turn the car into the corner, the car will have an imbalance. The car will slide at the front, first of all, causing understeer, which will bring you below the limit and slow down your minimum corner speed. The next most common mistake is actually on the other side of pushing the brake pedal too hard. It's actually not using the brake pedal quite enough. Now, it's obvious that if you're not braking hard enough and there's more potential available, you're going to be costing yourself time. The way to think about this is that the four tyres of the car all have a finite amount of grip. And if you're not using all of this grip to slow the car down, then you're going to be losing time to the driver who is using all of his tyres' grip. So how do you go about finding the absolute latest braking point and using all of your car's potential? Well, the first thing to do is to be conscious of a braking reference. So any marker at the side of the track that is going to be in the same position each and every lap. If you can brake at this point and your brake pressure is consistent and you enter the corner with fluidity and not pushing the car too far over the limit, then move your braking point incrementally further down the track each lap. Do this until you actually brake too late and miss the apex, and then you will have found the perfect braking point. The next biggest mistake that we see is drivers not transitioning to the brake pedal quickly enough and then not getting on the brake pedal hard enough in that short period. Braking is probably the most difficult part of driving on track. We need to get off the accelerator as quickly as we can, get on the brakes to a hard pressure, and then release slowly. Now, a lot of drivers can struggle with the shape of the brake pressure that we need to get the car to perform well. Some drivers might get the first part right, getting on the brake pedal hard and fast, but then they might mirror this by jumping off the brake pedal too quickly, when in fact we want a nice smooth release. We also see some drivers who have a nice, smooth and controlled release, but when they get on the brake pedal initially, it's also too smooth and too slow. The point here is that a lot of drivers will mirror their initial pressure and their release, but what we're actually looking for, as I mentioned, is to get on the brakes quickly and hard and then release slowly as you're entering the corner. This is also called trail braking, which we're going to cover in a number of other videos. Now, the technique that you use to change across from the accelerator to the brake does depend on whether you are left foot braking or right foot braking, but that's something for another video. The next mistake we see is drivers not being in an absolutely straight line when they do the majority of their braking. It's actually surprisingly common to see drivers moving around when they're on the brakes approaching a corner. Again, you need to think about the tyres having a finite amount of grip. If we're using all of the tyres' grip for the initial deceleration, the initial braking, as we should be, then you don't have any grip available for turning at this point. So that means that if you are moving the car around even slightly when you're doing your initial deceleration, you're wasting grip on turning and therefore not slowing the car down as quickly as you possibly could. The other problem is because you're using most of the tyre's grip to slow down the car, any steering input that you make can make the rear of the car very unstable, potentially leading to an unwanted spin. To fix this problem, make sure that you're looking down towards the entry and the apex of the corner. You can then drive in a direct straight line to the turning point of the corner, ensuring that you're using all of the tyre's grip for deceleration. Of course, once you get to the turning point, you'll want to begin to release the braking pressure and trail brake into the corner, but more on that in another video. Check out this other video I made about the biggest mistakes we see sim racers make with accelerating to see if you can be faster. Thanks, please subscribe as we'll have more videos to make you faster each week. If you want to improve your lap times quickly, check out our sim training programs in the link below.